Hey guys, Pastor Tim here. Hope you're ready for another video from our youth group at Lighthouse Baptist Church. If this is your first time watching a video or you're trying to catch up on a missed lesson, we hope that this video is a blessing to you and helps you grow in your relationship with Jesus Christ.
All right, so Ecclesiastes chapter 10. All right, influence, all right? A pursuit of the trivial, all right? The pursuit of the trivial will affect our influence or diminish our influence. Or, as you'll see up here, you'll lose your edge. All right, we'll read verse 10 through 14. So Ecclesiastes chapter 10, verse 10 through 14. The Bible says, "If the iron be blunt," most likely referring to an axe or a sword, and he do not whet the edge, then must he put to more strength, but wisdom is profitable to direct. Surely the serpent shall bite without enchantment, and a babbler is no better. All right, the words of a wise man's mouth are gracious, but the lips of a fool will swallow up himself. The beginning of the words of his mouth is foolishness, and the end of his talk is mischievous, however you want to say it, madness. A fool also is full of words. A man cannot tell what shall be, and what shall be after him. Who can tell him? All right, so you'll lose your edge. How can focusing on the trivial things of life, let me stop it right there first, actually. What do you think I mean by, or the Bible means by, you'll lose your edge? All right, the blade is blunt and stuff. Anybody else? Ethan?
Maybe you'll lose your reputation.
Not really your reputation, your influence. Gianna? It's talking about if a blade or if an axe, if we have a picture up here, if an axe is blunt, all right, what is the purpose of an axe? What are you trying to do? You're trying to chop something down. So if it's blunt, what will the axe not be good at?
Smashing.
So you're saying it's not very good, very effective, all right? If you focus on the trivial things, if you pursue after them and they become folly in your life, you will lose your effectiveness for what is truly valuable. If you want to think about it, that's why we're talking about influence. If you're focused on the trivial and it becomes folly in your life, your testimony will be affected. Your witness will be affected. All right? You blunt the edge of, these types of objects when you don't sharpen them continually, when you just drag them through the dirt, when you accidentally bang them against something they're not supposed to be cutting through, like a stone or something like that. You're dulling the blade. You're blunting the blade. And he talks here, if the iron be blunt and he doth not whet the edge, then must he put to more strength, but wisdom is profitable to direct. So, is it possible to cut down a tree with a blunt axe?
Yes.
Yes. But what is the key that we see in verse 10? How can you do it? You have to put more what?
Power.
More power. You got to try harder. All right? Now, guys, this is something that men, I think, usually have to learn a little bit more so than ladies. All right? Because ladies are just smart. All right? But you're not impressing anyone if you do a simple task a very hard way. What I'm saying is, how many guys know the saying, it's better to work what than what? Smarter, not harder. All right? You're not impressing anyone because you can chop down the tree with a blunt axe. All right? You want to be smart, sharpen it, and it'd be a more effective tool. All right? It's the same thing when it comes to your influence for Christ. All right? If you're focusing after the trivial, all right, if you're just more about relationships, boyfriend, girlfriends, if you're more about just social media, if you're more about things that just don't have to do with God, but in themselves are not sinful, you're really not going to have a very good testimony or influence on others for Christ, right? If the only thing I know about Greg, all right, is that he loves to play video games, and he all of a sudden came up and wanted to talk to me about Christ, is he really going to have that great of an influence on me? Like, what's so different about Greg? I like video games too, right? You guys follow me there? Mm-hmm. Right? You want to have an effective influence, and it can't happen when you're focused on trivial. So let me ask you this. How do you blunt the edge, or let me ask you this first. As a Christian, who do we want to be effective for? God. All right? So how do you blunt your edge when it comes to your influence for God? Luke?
Oh, you're in the Word, you pray and spend time with God?
That's how you blunt the edge?
I mean, not do that. So.
You don't do that. You focus on other things. All right, Locke.
You just stop witnessing to other people.
Yeah, you're not witnessing, Greg?
You pay too much attention to school and work and other people.
Yeah. When you neglect rest, when you neglect worship, when you neglect relationship with God, you're blunting your edge. Now, when I say rest, I'm not talking about when you neglect naps and such, but naps are good. But rest in the Bible, what is that talking about? It's talking about
Believing in God's promises and letting them comfort you.
yeah, when you're not you're not walking by faith, all right? When you're not taking time to stop and worship God, spending time with Him, the worship and relationship, neglecting those things are going to blunt your edge. But doing those things, as Luke said at first, is going to help sharpen your edge and sharpen your influence for God. All right? And then in the next couple of verses, he talks about what you say. All right? Foolish words can also dull your influence. All right? If you have one side of your mouth, the Bible talks about, you shouldn't have, like, out of one side of your mouth come out springs of life, and the other side of your mouth come out poison or so forth. All right? We all understand someone can say a good thing one time and then a very foolish thing the next time. All right? We probably all stuck our foot in our mouth in those cases. But it shouldn't be so for the Christian. All right? But foolish words can dull our influence. All right? So if Luke was to, say something mean to me and hurt my feelings or something, all right? Like, oh, Pastor Tim, you can't jump that high. You didn't get the post-it note that high. All right? And then later that day, he was wanting to tell me about Jesus Christ. Do you think his influence would be very effective on me? No, so don't speak foolishly. Yeah, I love how he says here in verse 11, surely the serpent will bite without enchantment, all right? You don't need to do anything special to get a serpent to want to bite you. Just come too close or something. And a babbler is no better. A foolish person is going to say foolish things no matter what, all right? You don't want to be a foolish person. You want to think before you speak, all right? Many of you guys need to learn to do that, all right? Think before you speak. And also think before you act. It works, pretty well. In fact, what does the Bible say? It says, be swift to what? To listen, slow to, and slow to wrath, all right? Very good. You have 2 ears, 1 mouth. Use them proportionally. Verse 12, for the words of a wise man's mouth are gracious, but the lips of a fool will swallow up himself. How can foolish words swallow up somebody? Grace.
When he says so much stuff that his words backfire on him.
Yeah. All right. I'm not saying I've seen this in this class, all right? But when people just state something and don't really know what they're talking about, that's going to show you to be a fool. All right? So think before you speak. Or even the way you state things, guys. You don't have to state everything as absolute. All right? I am the oracle of God. What I say is true. All right? You can say things like, well, in my opinion, or I think. Those are good things to say, all right, gentlemen? All right, so moving on. We're just calling out people straight up. All right, Colossians 4, verse 5 says, walk in wisdom toward them that are without, redeeming the time. We want to watch our influence, all right, especially among those that are lost. We want to have a good influence with them as opposed to a bad one, okay? Walk in wisdom towards them that are without, redeeming the time. What does that redeeming the time mean? Ethan?
Maybe. Is it using your time wisely?
Why do we need to use our time wisely?
So we
Luke?
don't waste time.
Like redeeming the time that you already have lost by not spending it, by not having influence over there, I guess.
No, Ethan wasn't far off. You want to use your time wisely, redeeming the time. But why is it important to use your time wisely, though? Because you only have...
1 month.
So, Gianna?
Time is limited.
Time is limited. All right? I don't know if you guys ever heard this example before, but somebody, I don't know what the correct number is, but they talked about, like, imagine if you had, like, so many dollars in the bank, like $30,000 that got into your bank account each and every day, all right? And you could use it however you want, okay? But the catch is, at the end of the day, when the clock strikes midnight and your chair turns into a pumpkin or something, you lose all that money. Whatever money you have left over, you lose it, but you do get $30,000 new dollars the next day. Well, how would you want to spend the $30,000 you get every day?
Wisely.
Well, not just wisely. Do you want to leave anything?
No.
No, you want to use it. And I know it's not $30,000, but the example is like each of those dollars represents a second you have in the day. All right? How many of those seconds or dollars do we leave unused or unwise? We spend too much on Whataburger as opposed to good things in our life and stuff. You want to use your time wisely, especially when it comes to those who are without, those who are lost. Turn over to 2 Timothy. All right? 2 Timothy chapter 2, verse 14 says, of these things put them in remembrance, charging them before the Lord, that they strive not about words to no profit. So like, don't waste your words on things that are not profitable, but to the subverting of the hearers. All right. So if you want to use your words profitably, study to show thyself approved unto God, a workman that needeth not to be ashamed. All right, because you're not saying foolish things, you're saying things that honor God, rightly dividing the word of truth. But shun profane and vain babblings. We just talked about the babbler in our passage in Ecclesiastes. For they will increase unto more godliness, ungodliness. All right, the reason we want to study God's word and pursue that which is profitable as opposed to trivial is because we will then have a good influence to those who are without as opposed to the babbler or the fool. All right, our last point for this chapter, opportunity. All right, so opportunities. If you pursue after the trivial, it will make you a poor leader and it will squander opportunities to serve and to lead. Let's read verse 15 to the end of the chapter. So back in Ecclesiastes chapter 10, verse 15 to the end. Okay? The Bible says, the labor of the foolish wearieth every one of them, because he knoweth not how to go to the city. Woe to thee, O land, when thy king is a child. And he's not talking about an actual child. He behaves himself as a child. And thy princes eat in the morning. And it's not saying that you can't eat breakfast. It's talking about they're all just concerned about partying. All right? And they'll start the feast early in the day. Don't even go to work. Verse 17, blessed art thou. So woe to the land that has this king. But blessed art thou, O land, when thy king is the son of nobles, and thy princes eat in due season for strength and not for drunkenness. Now, he says when thy king is the son of nobles, he's not talking about like just only nobility in the throne, but he's saying he behaves himself as such as well. Verse 18, but much slothfulness, by much slothfulness the building decayeth, and through idleness of the hands the house droppeth through. All right, if Nehemiah stopped working or became lazy, would the wall have been finished? No. They would have came in and attacked him before that. Verse 19, a feast is made for laughter, and wine maketh merry, but money answereth all things. Now, don't get the wrong idea. We'll talk about that in a second. And verse 20, curse not the king, no, not in thy thought, and curse not the rich in thy bedchamber, for a bird of the air shall carry the voice, and that which hath wings shall tell that matter. Be careful what you say, even if you think it's to a trusted confidant or something like that. But anyway, the pursuit of the trivial will make you a bad leader, all right, and will squander the opportunities you have to serve and lead. It's kind of about your influence, okay? But here in these verses, we see an example of servant leadership versus self-serving leadership, or just serving yourself, all right? We see an incompetent leader. He says, woe to, in verse 16, woe to thee, O land, when thy king is a child, behaves himself, not quite like a king, but like a child, and thy princes eat in the morning. They're just concerned about pleasing themselves, having feasts. They're only concerned about the pomp and not the pomp and circumstance, but the glory that comes with being a king. Incompetent leaders that just want to party are not going to make for very good leaders, correct? All right. If you pursue after the trivial, which could be things that people see as the pleasures of this world, things that make you happy, whether it's like the king who just wants to party, all right? It's not going to make you a good leader, and it's definitely not going to help. It's going to squander the opportunities you have to serve God. You follow? Because if you're only concerned about pleasing yourself, are you being a good leader? All right? Because we see from the example of Christ, what type of leadership do we see from Christ? We call it blank leadership. Lot. Servant leadership. All right? So if someone's showing servant leadership, what does that mean? Is he just focused on himself or on who?
Others.
He's focused on others. All right? Preferring others above yourselves. All right? Look in the book of Philippians. Have great examples of that. But a good leader, we see in verse 17, blessed art thou, O land, when thy king is the son of nobles. He behaves himself correctly, and thy princes eat in due season. So unlike the other princes that just want to eat when they want to and have the feast, these ones, they do it in due season. They don't do it when it's not needed. All right? They don't throw the parties unless there's actually something truly to celebrate like that. They don't just do it to please themselves. All right? And at the end of verse 17, and not for drunkenness. So it's definitely not for their own pleasure. All right? Good leaders, ultimately, a good leader takes care of their people. All right? If you want to be a good leader, a good servant for Christ, you will want to take care of your people. Now, in some cases in the future, for some of you guys, that would be your family. All right, but if you want to put it in a way that you could apply to yourselves right now, all right, you want it to be a good steward of what God has given you. All right, what are things that you can steward in your life right now to the glory of God? All right, Micah? School. Luke, not Luke, Locke.
Your money.
Your money. All right.
Time.
Great. Time, yeah, redeeming the time. You want to steward your time wisely. Your talents. You want to steward your talents wisely as well. Now, the result of bad leadership we see in verse 18. By much slothfulness, the building decayeth, and through idleness of the hands, the house droppeth through. So the result of bad leadership, someone who's pursuing the trivial and it becomes folly, is that the structure breaks down. Okay? We talked about Nehemiah. If he got lazy, if he started pursuing after trivial things, all right? If he went to those meetings with the other kings and compromised on certain stuff, would he have ever finished the wall? No, and the wall would have just been broken down again. All right? But obviously, you guys, who here is building a house? Nobody. All right? So for you, the structure isn't necessarily a building. All right? But what could a structure be in your life? Okay? If you're one day, guys, look here, look here. If you guys one day become a father, okay, what is the structure that you're then the leader of? Micah? Your family. All right? If you pursue after trivial things, if you pursue after things that become folly, all right, you're not focused on your family, what structure is going to break down? Your family. All right? Be a good leader. Don't pursue after that of greater purpose, not the things that don't matter. All right? So the structure can be many other things than just a simple building. It could be your family. It could be the future job you have. It could be your relationships you have right now. If you're not being a good servant leader, all right, those relationships can break down. And that includes your relationship to your parents, guys. Don't just think it's a one-way thing, your parents to you. You have a relationship with your parents that, hey, you can steward as well, that you can make a positive and a glorifying thing in your life as well. You want to do the things that will help it grow. When it comes to a family, when it comes to your relationships you have right now, you don't want to be lazy. You want to do things that will help it grow. That's what we see here in verse 19. He says, a feast is made for laughter, and wine maketh merry. So, but then he says, but money answereth all things. Okay? Like, oh yeah, I thought, money was bad, but now we're saying money is good. You want money. Okay. When you're an adult, okay, and you have your own family, you have your own house, what do you need money for? Everything. But give me some examples. Come on. Taxes. Ooh. All right, Gianna. Buying light clothes. Taco dollars. Feeding your family. Elijah.
I was going to say food.
Food. Come on, guys. You guys obviously aren't your own adults yet and have these things to pay.
Decor.
Yes.
I'm looking for a specific word here, Ethan.
The bills.
The bills! You need money to pay for things like the bills and food and so forth, all right? But if you're pursuing, but he gives the example here of a feast is made for laughter and wine maketh merry. Which one of the leaders was only cared about feasting and drinking wine? All right, the good leader or the bad leader? The bad leader, the one that behaved like a child who ate in the morning. He's only caring about feasting and wine. So if he's only caring about that, what is he not caring about? He's caring about his kingdom. All right, and the reason it says, but money answereth all things, because he's not focused on the matters of the kingdom and raising money or things like that to help fix some of the problems. All right, the city's going to break down. All right, oh yeah, he enjoys his parties. It makes him feel good. Oh yeah, he's enjoying this or that. Oh yeah, it's awesome to pursue after these things that bring me pleasure. But if I'm neglecting the more important things, but money answereth all, if I'm forgetting to pay for the bills, all right, I'm going to get kicked out of the house. Am I forgetting to, collect the taxes to fix these certain things in the city? The city's going to break down. I'm not being a good leader. Okay, you guys follow that picture there? So it's not saying, oh yeah, you get all the money you want. No, it's talking about you need to be responsible, all right? Don't be so focused on the trivial that you neglect what you need to do that which you're supposed to do. Like for the king, getting the money and using the money wisely to make the city function. As a future, adult, a parent of your own family or something like that, focusing on having the money and stewarding it well to buy or to pay the bills. All right, so you know what, Lydia, maybe I can't buy all these decor things because I need to pay for the electric. I need to pay for the water or whatever it may be. All right, you guys follow that? All right. A pursue after trivial things that become folly will lead those things to break down. Okay? A good leader is not focused on them. He's focused on the greater purpose God has in front of him.